Friend's sister lied that I got her pregnant. My parents disowned me. Now the truth's out, and they're begging all. It started with a phone call, one I'd never forget. Jenny, the younger sister of my close friend Alex, called me out of the blue. At first, her voice was calm, almost calculated. "We need to talk," she said, her tone serious. I was confused. Jenny and I had never been close. Aside from polite hellos and occasional small talk at gatherings, we barely interacted. So when she told me she was pregnant, I had no idea what it had to do with me. "Congratulations?" I said hesitantly. She didn't laugh. Instead, she dropped the bombshell. "It's yours." I felt like the air had been sucked out of the room. "What are you talking about?" I asked, my voice rising. "That's not possible. We've never—" "You're lying," she interrupted, her voice sharp. "You know exactly what I'm talking about. It happened at Alex's party. Don't try to deny it." My mind raced. I remembered the party she mentioned, a chaotic night with plenty of drinks and laughter, but nothing even remotely close to what she was accusing me of had happened. "Jenny, this didn't happen," I said firmly, but she wouldn't budge. "You can deny it all you want," she said, her tone venomous, "but you'll have to step up eventually. This is your responsibility." The conversation left me reeling. How could she accuse me of something so serious, so false? I tried to reason with myself, thinking it would blow over. Surely, no one would believe such an obvious lie. But I was wrong. The next day, I got a call from my parents. My mom's voice was shaky, her words rapid and accusatory. "Why didn't you tell us?" she demanded. "Tell you what?" I asked, still trying to process everything. "About Jenny," she said. "She's pregnant, and it's yours. How could you hide something like this from us?" I was stunned. "Mom, that's not true," I said. "She's lying." "Why would she lie about something like this?" my dad chimed in, his tone cold. "I don't know," I exclaimed. "But I swear to you, I've never been with her. This isn't my child." They didn't believe me. "We raised you better than this," my mom said, her voice filled with disappointment. "You need to take responsibility." "No," I said, my anger boiling over. "What I need is for you to believe me." But they didn't. That night, I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, trying to make sense of what was happening. My parents, the people who were supposed to support me, had taken Jenny's word over mine without hesitation. I had no idea how much worse it was about to get. The days following Jenny's accusation were some of the darkest of my life. My parents, once my pillars of support, now treated me like a stranger, a disappointment they couldn't wait to rid themselves of. I tried to reason with them, to explain that Jenny's claim was baseless, but they refused to listen. "She's a nice girl," my mom insisted during one of our arguments. "Why would she make something like this up?" "She's lying, Mom," I exclaimed, my frustration spilling over. "I don't know why she's doing this, but I'm telling you the truth. This never happened." My dad crossed his arms, his expression cold and unyielding. "If it's not true, prove it," he said. "Until then, you need to step up and take responsibility." I felt like I was drowning. The people who were supposed to know me best, to believe in me, were siding with someone who had no evidence. Just a story. Word spread quickly within our extended family. I started receiving calls and messages from relatives, all of them filled with judgment and thinly veiled disappointment. "I'm so ashamed of you," one aunt said during a particularly brutal phone call. "Your parents don't deserve this." "Deserve what?" I snapped. Being lied to? Because that's exactly what's happening. But no one believed me. The final straw came when my parents called a family meeting. I arrived, hoping it would be an opportunity to clear my name. Instead, it was an ambush. Jenny was there, sitting primly on the couch, her expression one of practiced innocence. Alex, her brother and my supposed friend, stood next to her, glaring at me like I was a criminal. "You need to stop denying it," Alex said as soon as I walked in. "Jenny doesn't deserve this." "And I don't deserve to be lied about," I shot back. Jenny's eyes filled with fake tears, and she clutched her stomach dramatically. "Why can't you just admit it?" she said, her voice trembling. "Why are you making this so hard?" "I'm not admitting to something that didn't happen," I said firmly. My parents, sitting across the room, looked at me with a mix of anger and disappointment. "This is your mess," my dad said, "and until you take responsibility for it, you're not welcome in this house." I froze, their words hitting me like a freight train. "You're kicking me out?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "You've left us no choice," my mom said, refusing to meet my eyes. I stared at them, waiting for someone to speak up, to defend me, to acknowledge the absurdity of the situation. But no one did. Without another word, I walked out the door, my heart heavy with a mix of anger, betrayal, and heartbreak. I packed a bag, moved into a cheap motel, and tried to figure out what to do next. My world had been turned upside down, and I felt completely alone. But even in my lowest moments, I clung to one truth. I knew I was innocent, and I was determined to prove it. Being disowned by my parents and ostracized by my family was a pain I wouldn't wish on anyone. I spent weeks trying to scrape by in a cheap motel, my thoughts consumed by Jenny's lie and the fallout it had caused. I knew the only way to clear my name was to get irrefutable proof. It wasn't enough for me to know the truth. I needed everyone else to see it too. With what little money I had left, I contacted a lawyer. After explaining the situation, they immediately recommended a paternity test. "If you're innocent, this will prove it," the lawyer said. "But you'll need Jenny's cooperation to move forward." The thought of confronting Jenny again made my blood boil, but I knew it was necessary. I reached out to Alex, hoping he might help me convince her. When I called, his tone was icy. "What do you want?" he asked. "I want a paternity test," I said, cutting straight to the point. "If Jenny's telling the truth, she has nothing to lose." Alex hesitated. "I don't think she'll go for it," he said finally. "Why not?" I pressed. "If she's so sure, why wouldn't she agree to prove it?" There was a long pause before he muttered, "I'll talk to her." A week later, Jenny reluctantly agreed to the test. She acted indignant, claiming it was unnecessary, but I didn't care. All I wanted was the truth. The waiting period for the results felt like an eternity. Every day, I replayed the events in my mind, imagining the moment when I could finally prove my innocence. When the results came in, I barely slept the night before my lawyer called. "You're not the father," they said, their voice calm but firm. Relief washed over me, followed closely by anger. I had known the truth all along, but hearing it confirmed reignited my fury at the people who had doubted me. With the results in hand, I called my parents. My mom picked up, her voice guarded. "I have the paternity test results," I said, not bothering with pleasantries. There was a pause. "And?" she asked. "I'm not the father," I said, my voice steady. Jenny lied. The silence on the other end of the line was deafening. "We need to talk," she said finally. "No," I replied. "You need to apologize. You need to acknowledge what you did. How you abandoned me without a second thought. How you sided with someone else over your own child." "Robin, it wasn't like that," she began, but I cut her off. "It was exactly like that," I said firmly. "And now that the truth is out, you don't get to pretend it wasn't." I hung up before she could respond. For the first time in months, I felt a sense of control over my life. The truth was out, and while it couldn't undo the damage, it was a step toward reclaiming my dignity. After the paternity test revealed the truth, I thought the worst was behind me. But Jenny's lies weren't done causing chaos. Instead of admitting her mistake, she doubled down, trying to shift the blame and keep the narrative alive. She must have tampered with the test, she told Alex, who relayed the accusation to me. She probably bribed someone to get the results she wanted. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "That's ridiculous," I said, my voice shaking with anger. "She knows she's lying, and now she's just grasping at straws." Alex's faith in Jenny wavered, but he wasn't fully convinced. "Look, I don't know what to believe anymore," he admitted. "But you should know she's not backing down." Her persistence infuriated me. She had already ruined my relationship with my family and dragged my name through the mud. Yet she wasn't willing to admit she was wrong. To make matters worse, my parents started reaching out again, but not for the reasons I hoped. "Robin, we need to talk," my dad said during one of his calls. His tone wasn't apologetic, it was transactional. "What's there to talk about?" I asked. The test proved I'm not the father. Jenny lied, and you believed her over me. He sighed heavily. We made a mistake, but we're still your parents. We need to move past this as a family. Move past this? I repeated, incredulous. You disowned me, called me a liar, and sided with someone else. Now that the truth is out, you want to act like nothing happened? It's not that simple, he argued. We were trying to do what was right for the baby. There was no baby, I said coldly. At least, not one that had anything to do with me. And if you had bothered to believe me, you would have known that. My mom chimed in, her voice softer but equally manipulative. Robin, we've always loved you, she said. We just thought you needed a push to take responsibility. Now that it's cleared up, can't we just start over? Her words might have meant something months ago, but now they felt hollow. You don't get to start over without an apology, I said. And even then, I don't know if I can ever trust you again. The conversation ended with more excuses and half-hearted justifications, but no real acknowledgement of the pain they had caused. Meanwhile, Jenny's lies continued to unravel. Rumors spread that she had been seeing someone else around the time she claimed to be pregnant with my child. Eventually, the truth came out. She had lied to avoid facing the consequences of her own actions. Her reputation took a hit, but not nearly as much as it should have. She still managed to play the victim, blaming the situation on miscommunication and pressure. For me, the damage was already done. My parents had shown me where their loyalty lay, and I couldn't unsee it. With Jenny's lies exposed and my parents' shallow attempts at reconciliation ringing hollow, I knew it was time to take control of the situation once and for all. Jenny's baseless accusations had turned my life upside down, and while the truth was out, the damage to my reputation, relationships, and mental health couldn't be undone so easily. The final straw came when I heard from a mutual acquaintance that Jenny was still spreading lies about me. According to her, the paternity test results were questionable, and she insisted I had manipulated the process to get out of my so-called responsibilities. It was infuriating. Her refusal to accept the truth wasn't just annoying. It was harmful. Her words continued to poison how people saw me, and I knew I couldn't let it slide any longer. I reached out to my lawyer again, explaining the ongoing defamation. We can take legal action, they said. You have grounds for a lawsuit based on the damage her false claims have caused to your reputation and well-being. I was hesitant at first. Taking legal action felt extreme, but the more I thought about it, the more I realized it was necessary. Jenny had dragged my name through the mud, alienated me from my family, and jeopardized my personal and professional life. She needed to be held accountable. The process was exhausting but empowering. Filing the lawsuit forced Jenny to confront the reality of her actions. She couldn't hide behind lies or play the victim in front of a judge. When she was served with legal papers, her reaction was predictable. She claimed I was overreacting and accused me of trying to ruin her life. But for once, her manipulations didn't work. The evidence was on my side, and her history of deception was impossible to ignore. As the case progressed, I began to see just how far-reaching her lies had been. Witnesses came forward, recounting how she had spread rumors about me to friends, colleagues, and even acquaintances. It was clear that her actions weren't just impulsive, they were calculated. The lawsuit ended with a settlement. Jenny was ordered to issue a public apology, retract her false statements, and pay damages for the harm she had caused. The apology was as insincere as I expected, but it didn't matter. For the first time in months, I felt a sense of closure. The legal victory wasn't just about clearing my name. It was about reclaiming my dignity and proving to myself that I deserved better than the treatment I had endured. My parents, meanwhile, were conspicuously silent throughout the process. They didn't offer support or acknowledge their role in enabling Jenny's lies. Their absence only reinforced what I already knew. They had chosen sides, and it wasn't mine. With the lawsuit behind me, I could finally focus on rebuilding my life. With the lawsuit behind me and Jenny's lies officially debunked, I finally felt like I could breathe again. The weight of the past few months began to lift, replaced by a quiet sense of accomplishment. I had fought for my truth, stood up against manipulation, and emerged stronger for it. But the journey wasn't without its scars. The rift with my parents remained. After the lawsuit concluded, I hadn't heard from them. No apology, no acknowledgement of the role they played in enabling Jenny's deceit, just silence. At first, it stung. A part of me had hoped they would take this as an opportunity to reflect and make amends. But as time went on, I realized their silence spoke volumes. They weren't willing to take responsibility for their actions, and I wasn't willing to continue chasing their approval. Instead, I turned my focus inward, prioritizing my own healing and growth. I began attending therapy, something I had avoided for years. At first, it felt strange to open up to a stranger about everything I had been through, but it quickly became one of the most valuable parts of my journey. My therapist helped me unpack the years of neglect, betrayal, and self-doubt that had built up, giving me tools to move forward with confidence and clarity. I also leaned heavily on my chosen family, the friends who had supported me when no one else did. People like Alex, who had initially believed Jenny's lies but later apologized and worked to rebuild our friendship. Or Clara, who never doubted me for a second and reminded me of my worth every step of the way. Their unwavering support was a reminder that love and loyalty aren't tied to blood. They're tied to actions. As I moved forward, I started setting goals for myself, both personally and professionally. I poured my energy into my work, earning a promotion that allowed me to take on more responsibilities and explore new opportunities. Outside of work, I focused on hobbies that brought me joy: traveling, hiking, learning to cook. Each new experience felt like a step toward reclaiming the parts of myself that had been overshadowed by the chaos of the past year. One day, while sorting through old photos and mementos, I came across a picture of my family from years ago. We were smiling, huddled together at a holiday gathering. For a moment, I felt a pang of sadness for what could have been, for the family I had always wanted but never truly had. But instead of dwelling on it, I tucked the photo away and reminded myself of how far I had come. The experience with Jenny and my parents had been painful, but it had also taught me invaluable lessons about resilience, boundaries, and self-worth. I realized that my life was no longer defined by the people who had hurt me. It was defined by the strength I had found in the face of their betrayal, the love I had built with my chosen family, and the future I was creating for myself. To anyone who has ever felt betrayed, abandoned, or overlooked, I want to say this: you are more than their lies. You are more than their neglect. And you have the power to rise above it all and build a life that is full of love, joy, and purpose. Here's to letting go of the past, embracing the present, and stepping boldly into the future.